Okay, hey, what's up, everybody? This is your brother John An Shen, and today I'm going to do a quick seminar for you on the four elements model of the development of consciousness. So we're going to get into this stuff kind of deeply here for a while, but before we do, I want to just show you a couple of things. First, this is a Japanese gorinto. So this is a very common thing that you would see in Japan, and you've got different levels to the gorinto. You've got the earth level, the water level, the fire level, the wind or air level, and then you've got the void. So this is a very common type of thing that you'll see in a lot of what I'd call hermetic architecture all over the world. So we see it a lot in Asia also with the pagoda model. So I've got this turned on the side because I was using it to demonstrate something else the other day. But basically, you've got the base of the pagoda, which is earth. You've got the vessel at the top or in the middle, which is water. And then you've got fire. And then you've got air. So the important thing to remember about this is that this sort of hermetic design, this hermetic architecture, not only has that sort of implicit hermetic meaning, but it also has an explicit meaning as well. So you see that the earth element is the base, and it's also the largest. So the earth element is the most important stage of development, the most necessary stage of development. Then water becomes slightly not less necessary, but less common. And then you've got fire, which becomes less common after that. You've got air, which is even less common. And then finally you get into the void. So if you can imagine this sort of sideways pagoda stacked up one after the other, going from earth, water, fire, air to earth, water, fire, air, earth, water, fire, air, that's kind of a general overview of human history, really. So things develop at the level of earth, things develop at the level of water, things develop at the level of fire, and then air. And then once we get into the void, basically at air, in each of these we have an internal and an external aspect. By the time you get to air external, basically what happens is the people who are at air external realize that they need to wipe everybody out. And that's what happens. So I'm going to go through this model with you, and a lot of you are probably not going to like it. It's probably going to upset a lot of people. But some of you who are interested in history, some of you who are interested in some of the inconsistencies in recorded history will find this perhaps enlightening, probably interesting. So we can see that there was a higher level of technological or even social or spiritual or intellectual development in ancient times. Maybe not higher than now, we don't want to say that, but there were certainly times when things rose and fell again. So I want to show you how the model basically works. So let's scroll down here. We've got a lot of stuff to go through. So we've got each of these four elements. We've got the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element. So you can see this, we've got this chimp here, and the first three circuits, or really we could call them the first 6 circuits, are really just sort of this chimp mind, this sort of monkey mind. This is the level of typical humanity at different levels, or the level of consciousness of typical humanity at different levels. So once you get out of the fire element or the fire level of consciousness and into air 1 or air 2 or air internal and air external, you're really at a higher level than typical humanity. Really, by the time you hit air external, this is probably like the level of a self-awakened person, of an arahant or something like that. So let's take a look at this stuff. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. Now remember, each of these elements has an internal aspect and an external aspect. So basically what happens as consciousness is developing is that it waffles back and forth. It jumps back and forth from personal to group, personal to group, personal to group. And every time that jump happens, as you progress up the levels from earth to water to fire, air, that pendulum swing becomes less and less and less. So at the first layer, the earth layer or the earth level and the water level, the pendulum swing is kind of great. It's kind of an extreme swing between internal and external. So let's go through this stuff. You'll probably need to watch this more than once to get a deep understanding of this, but going through it once you can get a general overview. And we'll also talk about the end about how people at different stages of consciousness perceive each other and those who are at other levels. So we've got the air element. This generally represents gross energy. So earth, water, fire, air, gross, subtle, causal, and non-dual consciousness. So the internal aspect of this, the life conditions for this type of consciousness are a state of nature and biological urges and drives. And the physical senses dictate the state of being. The brain or mind coping capabilities at Earth internal are just instinctive and automatic existence. So a brief overview of this, Earth internal is just pure survival. There are no boundaries perceived between the self, between others, and the environment. The person at Earth internal only attends to immediate survival and physiological needs, and their main concerns are survival, shelter, water, food, and so on. And their behavior is automatic, instinctive, and lacks any type of foresight whatsoever. Now, before we go on, it's important to understand that all of us are at different levels at different times. So even though we might socially be at fire, in our home relationships we might be at water or something like that. So there are different strands flowing through our existence, and different strands are at different levels of consciousness as well. The real reason that I'm sort of going through this or teaching this today is because regardless of the level that you're at, let's say you're at fire external, for example. This is sort of like caring and sharing, which we'll talk about later. If you haven't fully developed the lower circuitry, you're really at a loss. So the idea here is that as we move up each layer or level of consciousness, we want to incorporate and transcend that level of consciousness. So I'm encouraging you to maybe get my books or products, maybe get my training series and things like that. Maybe do some live training with me in the future if you're up for that. But really you need to work on patching up any holes that you have in your not only consciousness but your real world practical skills and ability at each of these levels. So again, Earth internal, really it's just survival. Automatic, instinctive behavior without any foresight. The sort of mission statement of Earth internal is to express self now for survival. And there's a transitional dilemma that occurs at Earth internal. So all of these levels have a sort of transitional dilemma which causes you to evolve to the next level of consciousness. So the transitional dilemma that you get faced with at Earth internal is the awareness of individuality. And now the environment becomes a new quote-unquote world to survive in. So you recognize your own individuality, and there's a distinction between your internal world and the external world around you. Then we've got level 2. This is the Earth external unit, or the Earth external level. So the life conditions at Earth external are threatening and full of mysterious powers and spirits which must be placated or appeased rather. The brain and mind coping capabilities at Earth external are animistic, traditional and ritualistic, group-based, and tribal. So really this is just tribal consciousness. It's really the first time a group structure emerges into awareness. And you see supernatural causes are attributed to normal everyday events in life, the spirits, the gods, whatever. And group leaders do, or the group does what leaders and shaman tell them to. So let's make a correction there. So we'll say the group The group does what leaders and shaman tell them. There's a general fear of magical forces at this level. The sort of mission statement of Earth External is to sacrifice now to the tribe and the spirits. The transformational dilemma that occurs at Earth External is sacrificing for the tribe gets me less than using my strength and taking for myself. So when a person gets to this level, they say, wait a minute, all this sacrificing I'm doing for this tribe or the spirits or whatever gets me less than if I just take for myself. And then they jump up into Water 1 or Water Internal. So the water element is characterized by sort of subtle consciousness, subtle energy, subtle power. The life conditions of Water Internal are like a jungle where the tough and the strong prevail, the weak serve, and nature is an adversary to be conquered. The brain and mind coping capabilities or capacities at Water Internal are egocentric, asserting self for dominance, conquest and power, exploitative, and egocentric. Water Internal is generally characterized by self-gratification. Emotional impulses drive thinking and behavior. Actions are oriented towards instant gratification of impulses. And at this level, authority figures use force and violence to control the group. Also at this level, there's no ability to consider consequences over time. So the mission statement or motto of Water Internal is to express self now impulsively. The transformational dilemma that occurs at the final stage of Water Internal is that using force to accumulate and seek pleasure doesn't solve the problems of the group and society. So once you face this dilemma, you either stay at this level or you go up to Earth. Why do I keep saying Earth? You go up to Water External. So Water External, the life conditions are that you're controlled by a higher power which punishes evil and rewards good. So this could be the state, this could be God, this could be the law, this could be anything like that. The brain or mind coping capacities at this level are absolutistic, obedient as higher authority and rules direct, conforming, and guilt-based. So most of the religions, particularly the monotheistic religions, are probably at generally the Water External level. Water External is really sort of characterized by structured civilization. This is the first level where social rules, laws, and norms emerge. Also, long-range planning emerges and controls people's emotional impulses. At the same time, guilt also comes forth, and it enforces compliance with the group norms. Finally, hierarchy, organization, and logic emerge at this level. The motto or mission statement of Water External is to sacrifice self to obtain later for the group. And the transitional dilemma which occurs at the end or the higher stages of Water External is that you realize, wait a minute, rules, regulations, and black and white thinking restricts my success in a gray world. So once you hit that transformational dilemma, you either stay at Water External or you move up to Fire Internal. So fire's generally characterized by causal consciousness, causal energy, or causal consciousness. So Fire 1 or Fire Internal, the life conditions are that you're full of resources to develop and opportunities to make things better and to bring more prosperity. The brain or mind coping capacities at Fire Internal are multiplistic, pragmatic to achieve results and get ahead, testing of options, and maneuvering and politicking. Really, this is the level of personal success, the sort of level of entrepreneurs. So it's characterized by the individual seeking achievement and freedom from the rigid rule of the group. Science and technology are used to solve problems. The focus is on material success and the acquisition of possessions. Really sort of conspicuous consumption is what we're talking about. And this kind of unchecked consumption leads to world scale problems. So the mission statement at Fire Internal is to express self without irritating others. So at these previous levels, like Earth Internal, you're expressing self at the expense of others. At Fire 1 or Fire Internal, you're expressing self without, or trying to express self without raising the ire of other people. The transitional dilemma that you come across is that these power and possessions don't make you happy and don't fulfill you on the inside. So here, when you encounter this transitional dilemma, you either stay at Fire Internal or you're going to jump up to the next level, which is Fire External. So Fire External, the life conditions are that the habitat wherein people can find love and purposes through affiliation and sharing. This is really the level of caring and sharing, sort of the level of consensus, the level of the group. You'll see a lot of people are into helping others, helping animals, helping the environment. This is the level of most vegetarians. So you'll see a lot of these people that are vegans or vegetarians or something like that. And as far as they're concerned, they have the most highly developed consciousness that there is. So all of these levels can't perceive the next or the higher levels of consciousness. And when they encounter the next or higher levels of consciousness, the way they see those is they perceive those as the previous level. So when Fire External, maybe a caring and sharing vegetarian, perceives somebody at Air Internal, they really see them as somebody at the water level. So regardless of what level you're at or what level people are at, they can never fully comprehend the next level above them. They always perceive the level above them as characteristic or characterized by one of the levels below them. So you probably know the type, vegetarians, vegans, and they have this view that they have the most highly developed, most evolved consciousness, and everybody else is wrong. So the brain and mind coping capabilities or capacities at this level are relativistic. This is where you get the onset of creeping relativism, responding to human needs, affiliative, situational, consensual, and fluid. This is really sort of a community of caring, and it's characterized by this realization that we're all equal in a community of equals. The ability to take multiple perspectives or to empathize emerges here. This is one of the reasons why these people feel so strongly about veganism or saving the whales or saving the chimpanzees or saving whatever. It's because they have such an emergent empathy at this level. There's also an emphasis on caring and sharing and hearing everyone, giving voice or allowing everyone to have a voice. And this level is always going to be, or generally going to be, opposed to capital or corporal punishment. The mission statement or motto of Fire External is to sacrifice now to obtain for self and others. So this person encounters a transitional dilemma as well. What happens is that they realize that caring and sharing alone doesn't solve serious social and ecological problems. So they were at this level, I'm okay, you're okay, let's save the whales, let's protect the chimpanzees and the great apes, let's give everybody a voice. But they realize really what this leads to is gridlock. And they find out that this type of caring and sharing doesn't really solve complex social and complex ecological problems. So the next step after that is Air Internal. So the air element is really about non-dual consciousness. And at the higher levels, it's characterized by this idea of anatta, or no self. So air internal, the life conditions are that it's a chaotic organism where change is the norm and uncertainty an acceptable state of being. I should also mention here, this is not in the mind map, but this is generally the level, like the first level of awakening, self-awakening for something like an arhat or a self-awakened person. Really, this is the stage where you realize your own robotic nature, your own machine nature. So the brain or mind coping capabilities or capacities are systemic. So you've got systemic thinking, you've got functional consciousness. In Pali, this would be like Kriya consciousness. Kriya consciousness is the type of consciousness of an arhat or an awakened person, a self-awakened person. The consciousness is integrative, interdependent, existential, flexible, questioning, and accepting. So really we're talking about a self-actualized individual. This is the psychological quantum leap in human development. And this type of person at air internal realizes the complexity of world-scale problems and has an ability to think systemically at this level. The ability for systemic thinking really develops here. And ecology becomes priority over caring and sharing. So when we talk about ecology, we don't necessarily just mean ecology in the sense that we normally hear it, the environment and things like that. What we really are talking about is the interconnectedness, the interdependence of all existence becomes a priority over caring and sharing. The real mission statement or motto of air internal is to express self, not at the expense of others. So also at this level, you get a transformational dilemma that pushes you up to the next level. The transitional dilemma at air, oops, so we're in the wrong place, so sorry about that. The transitional dilemma at Earth internal is that complex thinking and models alone don't solve significant world scale problems. So even though you've developed this level of complex thinking, you've developed systemic thought, deep ecological interdependent thought, those still don't solve significant world scale problems. And at this point, you'll either stay at this level or you'll make the quantum leap up to air external. This is the part where I'll probably lose a lot of people. The life conditions at air external are a delicately balanced system of interlocking forces in jeopardy at humanity's hands. It's chaotic. The brain and mind coping capacities at this level are holistic, experiential, collective consciousness, collaborative, and interconnected. Really, this is the level of global actualization. So the highest priority becomes global survival, or not even global survival in the sense of the planet Earth, but survival of all phenomenon that are interconnected, recognition of the interconnectedness of all phenomenon and the survival thereof. There's a breakdown of space-time dimensions, and that requires global solutions or deep ecological solutions. At this point, you realize that it may be necessary to sacrifice groups for planetary survival or for the sake of the deep ecological interconnectedness. Decision-making combines thinking and feeling, and perceiving combines sense and intuition. The mission statement or motto at this level of consciousness is to sacrifice self and others for the world. Again, sacrifice self and others for the world. So, somebody at a lower level, as we said, no matter what level you're at, you always see the level above you as one of the levels before you. So, usually people who are below this level, and this is less than 1% of 1% of the human population. So when people encounter people at air external, usually they're sort of perceived as fascist, and in the sense of earlier levels. So the transformational dilemma at air external is what emerges after we solve the current problems which we can see. And that's really all that that we can see at this point. That's as far as the map of consciousness goes. After air external, we've got void. So for the life conditions at void, it's too soon to say. Should tend to be I-oriented because Earth external is we-oriented. It should be controlling and consolidating if this pattern holds. So for somebody at lower levels, it's going to look like fascism. It's going to look like that previous level of absolute obedience to authority, but it's something different. The brain and mind coping capacities are really the next neurological capacities which we're unsure about or haven't developed yet. Really, this is open-ended to the limits of the Homo sapiens brain. So we've got our friend the chimpanzee up here at the top. So these first 3 or first 6 levels are really this sort of ape mind, this extended ape human mind. Once we get up into air internal, and specifically air external, we're dealing with something different. So you can imagine we've got several different types of brains. We've got this very prehistoric brainstem, this reptilian brain that's focused on biosurvival. Then we've got the mammalian midbrain, which grew on top of that, which is sort of the water level. Beyond the water level, or in front of the water level, we developed the human neocortex, which is the fire level or the causal level of consciousness. And the air level really represents neurological structures which haven't yet been developed in the vast majority of humanity. There are people with these structures. They represent less than 1% of 1% of the population. So it's extremely rare. It's a relatively new phenomenon. There have been people throughout history that were at this level, though. Probably the historical Buddha was at this level. Probably other self-awakened people were also at this level where they had faced each of these transitional crises, and the result of those transitional crises had caused the development of new or different neurological formations. So it's very rare to see somebody at the air level, but there are people out there that are at this level. Another general thing to keep in mind is whatever level you think you're at, you're probably one level below that. So if you think you're at fire external, you're probably actually at water external. If you think you're at water internal, you're probably actually at earth internal. So this is just a brief overview. Let's take a minute now and just spend a little bit of time talking about how people at different levels of consciousness perceive each other and perceive people around them. Okay, so now we're going to go through how the levels of consciousness perceive each other. I'm going to go through this relatively quick, but I'm going to include PDFs for both of these presentations in this blog post. So I think that if you're interested in this, you can take some time to go through those PDFs and you'll get a more clear understanding of how this stuff works. So first of all, we're looking at Earth. So we're talking about Earth internal first. This is that sort of survival circuit. Oops. So with Earth internal, there's no perception of otherness. Earth internal doesn't have an opinion of anybody else because it doesn't make any distinction or see any distinction between itself and its environment. So Earth external perceives other Earth externals as tribal warfare, tribal competition for space. It sees water internal as rebellious children. It sees water external as missionary outsiders. It sees fire internal as merchants and traders. And it sees fire external as troublesome meddlers. And it sees air internal as strange magicians. Earth, oops, sorry, this should be water. Let's change that. So, water internal perceives earth external as masses that need to be controlled. It perceives water internal at the same level as itself as strength versus strength. It perceives water external as rigid moralist. It perceives fire internal, that level of really entrepreneurialism, as exploiters, thieves, and thugs. It sees fire external, the caring and sharing, vegetarian, vegan, save the whales crowd, as free lunch seekers. I'm going to fix some typos here as I go along. And it perceives air internal as clueless, absolutely clueless. Water external perceives earth external as ignorant savages and what used to be called the white man's burden. It perceives water internal as the beast man. It perceives water external as truth versus truth. So this is the same level. Their truth versus our truth. It perceives fire internal as right versus best solution. So, okay, fire internal has the best solution, but I'm still right. We're still right. It perceives fire external as truth versus false absolutism versus contextuality. And it sees air internal as that terrible creeping relativism. Let's go over here to fire. So, fire internal. Again, this is sort of the level of entrepreneurialism. So, fire internal perceives earth external as fresh meat to exploit, a fresh market to exploit. It perceives water internal as a danger to guard against. It perceives water external as rigid thinking and manipulative. It perceives fire internal as an influence war competitor, a competitor for influence. It perceives the same level, or the next level, fire external as naive idealist. And it perceives air internal as a source of ideas to exploit. Fire external sees earth external as people in need of aid. It sees water internal as victims of societal abuse. So again, fire external, this is the level of caring and sharing, the vegan, vegetarian, save the whales crowd. So it perceives earth external as people that need help. It experiences people at water internal as victims of societal abuse. It perceives water external as uncaring rationalist. It looks at fire internal, that level of entrepreneurialism, as exploitative parasites. It sees fire external as a bigger network, a bigger group of caring and sharing to join. And it sees air internal as uncaring elitist, the globalist, the New World Order, these type of people. And I'm definitely not supporting any so-called New World Order or something, but and I'm not saying that those people that are running the world are air internal either, because they're clearly not. So we have two different types of globalism. I should mention this first. We have 1984 globalism, and we have Star Trek globalism. So air internal isn't 1984 globalism, it's Star Trek globalism, and there's a big difference between the two. This is the direction that the world is moving in, whether you want it to move in this direction or not. What's important is how it manifests. So we're moving into a global society. So rather than try to fight against something called globalism, we need to be thinking about how we want globalism to manifest. Do we want it to manifest as Orwellian, totalitarian, 1984 type of globalism, or do we want it to manifest as the Federation and Star Trek globalism? So, air internal perceives Earth external as uneducated, unsophisticated peasants. It perceives water internal as dangerous egocentrists. It perceives water external as rigid, bigoted moralist. It perceives fire internal as exploitative criminals. It perceives fire external as hopelessly naive do-gooders, and it perceives its own level, air internal, as competent. So at each of these levels, as you go through each of these levels of consciousness, the way they see every other level of consciousness is criminality and insanity. So no matter what level you're at of consciousness, you see all other levels of consciousness as generally criminal and generally insane. Once you get into a more relativistic type of thinking, that happens less and less and less. But at the lower level, specifically earth and water, the perception of any other level of consciousness is very rigid, and it's always criminality and insanity generally. So this is a quick overview of different levels of consciousness. You can do different things to push yourself through these different levels of consciousness. So we have these transformational dilemmas that occur at each, which happen naturally. If you want to speed this up, there are ways to manufacture these transformational dilemmas to cause them to happen, to force the evolution. You can also do some of this through meditative practices, and there are some other ways as well. The one thing that is worth mentioning, and one of the reasons why I'm even talking about this in public, I've never talked about consciousness or the development or evolution of consciousness at this level before, just because I know that most people aren't really ready to hear this. But the real reason I'm talking about this is because as we move up each level, we need to incorporate and transcend the previous level. But if you have holes in those levels, if you haven't fully developed at each of those levels, you're going to have problems. And maybe not such serious problems, but it's hampering your own development. So as we're moving up this horizontal level of consciousness, or to different higher level horizontal levels of consciousness, you want to be incorporating as many vertical life skills as possible. So that's really what I'm trying to do here at earthwaterfireair.com. It's help you to develop, work on, improve your vertical life skills, so that as you're facing these transitional dilemmas, as you're evolving your consciousness, there aren't any holes in those vertical life skills, so that you're incorporating the full spectrum of ability and knowledge and capability and capacity at each level as you're transcending that level. So this has been your brother John Anshin. Quick seminar on the evolution of consciousness. Let me know what you think. I'm out of here. Peace.